Good morning, everybody. MikesMMAPicks here. We're back with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We're here for UFC 262, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I don't see this fight going the distance. It's going to be an incredible bout. 12 fights. Texas judging, very suspect. 4 fights expected to finish. For DFS purposes and DraftKings, it should be an interesting card, especially how these fights play out and who gets the nod when it hits the scorecards. I do recommend hunting for fights where we do expect a finish because that will eliminate one area of risk if it heads to the scorecard. So let's head to the first bout of the evening where we have Sean Soriano, a familiar name if you followed the fights, UFC fights back in the day. Remember the Chaz Skelly fight, etc. Sean Soriano coming in with a 14-6 record, plus 165 underdog with a DraftKings price of 7,100. So he's one of your lower priced underdogs here. This line has closed slightly, taking on Christos-Giagos, who we're familiar with as well. Fought Chris Wade back in 2015, has also been in there with Charles Oliveira, etc. 18-8 record, large grinder, fights out of Black House, minus 205 betting favorite. DraftKings price of 9,100. This fight does take place at 155 pounds. Soriano, we've seen him fight at featherweight more often than not. In this particular bout, I think Giagos' physicality, his size, and also his pace is going to be a difference maker here. Though Soriano does have speed, precision, and he doesn't necessarily have the top game that Giagos does in the wrestling. So I'll be picking Giagos to win in this spot. Soriano, though, does have some quick, sharp hands, and the longer this fight goes, Giagos could potentially be suspect to getting caught. But give me Giagos in this spot. Next up, we head to the featherweight division where we have Kevin Aguilar, who looked like dog shit last time out against Charles Rosa. 17-4 record. Texas fighter. Please take that into account as well. You look up and down this card, there are a few hometown fighters who could potentially get some hometown cooking on this card. Minus 110 at the betting window with a DraftKings price of 7,900. Now, Aguilar is taking on a wrestler in Tucker Lutz who has rattled off 11 consecutive victories. We've seen Lutz on the Contender Series. Minus 110 at the betting window. Lutz appears to have cardio. Not necessarily when it's on the feet. I would not, although we did watch the Rosa fight and how Rosa had some success against Aguilar on the feet. Looked completely out of shape. This time around, Aguilar coming in. Looks like he's in much better physical shape for this particular bout. 8,300 for Lutz. Lutz could potentially get some takedowns here, but I like Aguilar's takedown defense. He's a former football player who is tough as nails. This particular spot, I am leaning Aguilar. I think that the longer this fight goes, potentially we could see Aguilar have some more success trading in the pocket. If Lutz comes in here and implements a wrestling game and is able to take Aguilar down, then the tables could turn in this spot. But I'll be picking Aguilar to get the job done here. Not much confidence in this pick, though, because you look at Lutz and he is climbing the ladder. He has those 2 Contender Series victories and 11 victories in a row. He's got a lot of confidence heading into this bout. So give me Kevin Aguilar. Next up, goodness gracious, we have the highest priced fighter on the card as far as DraftKings goes. We've got Gina Mazany. You talk about James Krause and how he is able to change people's lives. Look at my Twitter account last night. I brought this up, and that was the first response somebody posted, was that James Krause does change people's lives, and he is a difference maker. 7-4 record. DraftKings price of $9,300. Taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. Cachoeira, 9-3 overall record. This lady will not stop moving forward. Plus 170 at the betting window. This line has closed. 6,900 in DraftKings, and this fight takes place at 125 pounds. You watch Cachoeira. She does appear to be improving fight after fight here, although beyond the Shevchenko bout, you look at the level of competition. Oh, man, I'm getting abdominal pain just thinking about this fight, because it is hell on wheels here, where we have Mazany, who could potentially look to fight a safe, smart, intelligent fight, looking for takedowns, controlling Cachoeira on the ground, and maintaining time control, where she could potentially pay off her price tag if she's able to control Cachoeira on the ground. Though you watch Mazany and the way that she really runs into trouble when she's facing adversity via strikes, and Cachoeira throws heat. I'm not ruling out Cachoeira via knockout in this spot. Mazany has looked like a deer in headlights at times when she's had the kitchen sink thrown at her, and defensively she's a liability out there. So if she goes for broke and the cardio's there, she could potentially grind out a decision win over Cachoeira, but I'll be picking Cachoeira to win this fight inside the distance. I think that's close to a 50-50 outcome in this spot. And take a look at those props for Cachoeira inside the distance. Next up, we've got Andrea Lee taking on Antonina Shevchenko. Valentina's not fighting tonight, folks. Andrea Lee, 11-5 record, minus 105 at the betting window, $7,000 in DraftKings. This line has closed. Shevchenko opened up as a significant favorite. Now Shevchenko sitting at minus 125 over at BetDSI. Shevchenko coming in with 9,200 on her price tag in DraftKings. This fight is fascinating because you have Andrea Lee, who was robbed last time out in Texas against Lauren Murphy, and she's going to look to try to get this fight to the ground if she's thinking about an intelligent game plan. She does not want to strike with a striker in Shevchenko, though Shevchenko appears to have made significant strides in regards to at least her defensive side of her ground game. This particular spot, I do lean Antonina Shevchenko. I think that although sometimes you have a big sis, big bro, little bro situation where the odds are impacted, and the namesake carries a lot of weight. In this particular spot, we're dealing with a Shevchenko who does appear to be improving fight after fight. I'll be picking Shevchenko to win in this spot. I think that her striking is going to shine here. And Lee, if she is unable to habitually get this fight to the ground, then she could potentially be in trouble here. So give me Shevchenko. Next up, we have a fight that is favorite to end inside the distance here, where we have Jamie Pickett, an 11-5 overall record, who is he's a well-rounded fighter to a certain degree. He is a durable fighter who's been in there with notable foes. Chookagian last time out emptied the gas tank on Pickett, and he was still there at the end of the fight. You watch Jordan Wright, who 11-1 record is slightly deceiving. If you have watched the fights of Jordan Wright on the regional scene, my goodness, the level of competition is not there. -120 betting favorite. I will say this though, Jordan Wright is the more well put together fighter who, in the pocket, he looks the cleaner fighter, the fighter who, outside of an octagon, if this was a competition, a mixed martial arts competition that didn't involve being potentially KO'd, he could potentially have success in that realm. But at -120 and 8,100 in DraftKings, he's going to have to knock Pickett out here. Pickett is going to continue to come forward, and Jordan Wright, I just don't trust that chin. He could potentially come out here though and land a head kick that stuns Pickett, and he's got to go for broke if that happens, because the longer this fight goes, I have concerns for Jordan Wright and his chin. You talk about someone who's just the way he carries himself, the way he responds in interviews, the way he walks up to the scale on the octagon. Very, very awkward fighter. Very strange. And fights out of a good camp. I'll be picking Pickett in this spot, but I think that it may become a war of attrition in this particular bout. Next up, let's continue through this card, my friends, where we have Mike Grundy, English wrestler, taking on Lando-Vannata. Lando-Vannata, by the way, his facial structure has changed after the beatings he's taken through the years. I was at his draw versus Matt, the Steamroller Frivola, and Vannata has a habit of fighting to the level of his competition. You watch the Tony Ferguson fight. Hung with them for a round. Then the wheels started to fall off. Stops moving his head. In this spot, Mike Grundy, we know what he's going to do. He's going to come out here, try to take Lando-Vannata to the ground. One important thing to mention here, this fight's taking place at 145 pounds. Vannata was not a big lightweight, very fluid on the feet, has a wrestling base, but there are levels to this game, and Grundy has the much better wrestling here in this spot. I'll be picking Mike Grundy to win here, though. If this fight does play out for extended periods of time on the feet, we know Lando-Vannata is live here. And a question mark to me is, how is this new weight class going to affect Vannata? He's no spring chicken. Both of these fighters are not young fighters here. And I used to look up and down Vannata's resume here, and he's been taking a lot of losses. So I think this was a desperation move, something that should have been done much earlier in his career. You also look at fighters like Frankie Edgar. My gosh, do you think that move to 135 pounds was a smart one for him? Lando-Vannata, live spot. The odds reflect that. I'll be picking Mike Grundy to win, though. I think his pace, his wrestling. Lando-Vannata does not have great takedown defense, and Mike Grundy is an excellent wrestler, and that is his base. If he gets away from that, he could be in trouble. But give me Mike Grundy in this spot. Next up, we've got Jacare Souza taking on Andre Muniz. If this fight took place a few years ago, very different reflection in the odds. Though we play the hand that we're dealt, and now Jacare coming in with a 26-9 overall record. Andre Muniz, not the best fighter in the world, though does have excellent jiu-jitsu. We know who Jacare is. This fight is going to take place in a larger octagon. There should be opportunity to move within that octagon. Who's going to set up the takedown first? How is this fight going to get to the ground? Is Muniz going to pull guard? Good questions. Good questions here. I do see Souza having a advantage early in this spot. He does not move his head well, though, and Muniz, I don't think, is going to make him pay on the feet. Muniz coming in with the DraftKings price of 7,700. The longer this fight goes, I think Muniz is going to become more live here and may have the ability to catch Jacare. Jacare, man, he looks so stale and flat as a board, stiff as a board. The Weidman fight, I was at that fight, and he was getting pieced up, and I wish that fight went to the ground because Weidman, his camp, Sarah and Longo, they wanted Weidman to go to the ground with Jacare, and he has a underrated ground game. Weidman does. So in this spot, back to the matters at hand here, we've got Muniz. I'll be picking Muniz to win. I think that Jacare is shop worn at this stage in his career, and he has nothing to fight for except for pride at this stage in the game. And Muniz is the much fresher fighter here in this spot. And you look at how Souza was taken out last time out with the strikes from the bottom by Kevin Holland. There is some recency bias reflective in these current odds, but there is a steep decline, a trajectory here that is not a good look. Dangerous spot to be in if you're laying money on this fight, but I'll be picking Andre Muniz. Next up, where we have a barn burner. This is the people's main event here, where we have Shane Burgos taking on Edson Barboza. By the way, if anybody has questions, the chat is open here. Shane Burgos, 13-2, minus 155 betting favorite over at BetDSI, coming in with a DraftKings price of 8,400, taking on Edson Barboza, who we know throws those heavy kicks, and he makes opponents pay. 21-9 record, though, getting up there in age at 35 years old, plus 125 underdog, DraftKings price of 7,800. This fight does take place at featherweight. You watched Burgos last time out. He took everything from Josh Emmett, and he kept moving forward, was dropped a couple of times. Very close fight. I was on Emmett in that spot, but we knew that the frenetic pace of Shane Burgos, the volume, he was going to be in that fight, and he really took it to Josh Emmett and did not shy away. Ate a lot of power strikes. When I was originally watching tape for this specific bout, Edson Barboza, I was thinking, wow, you know what? He has some clear openings here because Burgos doesn't move his head well, fights with his hands down. And then I dug a little bit deeper, and you watch Barboza. He has a tendency, once he starts moving backwards, he does not fight well off the back foot. He tries to be evasive at times. He fights in bursts, and Burgos does not fight in bursts. He will come at you for the entire 15 minutes. If Shane Burgos doesn't get knocked unconscious in this specific bout, I think that he wins this fight much more often than not. Barboza could potentially come out and look to land low kicks here, though his kicking game does tend to gas him out. And the longer this fight goes, I think we're going to see Burgos really look to stay in the pocket with Barboza, force him to exchange, and then take over late. This is a dangerous spot, though, where you have an Edson Barboza who has in the Ige fight, he took big damage in this fight and would not go away. I'll be picking Shane Burgos to win, though, in this spot. Next up, where we have Caitlin Chookagian taking on Vivian Araujo, 10-2 overall record, got started in mixed martial arts late in life. Chookagian, 15-4 overall record. One thing she does know how to do is win. Minus 135 betting favorite for Chookagian with a DraftKings price of 8,800. If you're a fan of grunts, tennis sounds, air getting hit, wind, Chookagian is your fighter. She is one of the most difficult fighters to sit back and watch tape on because you know exactly what she's going to do. And you know another fighter who has a semblance of a grappling game, of a wrestling game. They could potentially put Chookagian in trouble. Araujo, one problem I have with her is she has a tendency to gas in the second and third round of fights. She's done it many times. Chookagian against Calvillo, you saw a fighter who in Calvillo had the wrestling, had the grappling chops, and could not close distance. Araujo in the larger octagon, she's going to have to really work hard to close distance in this spot. And the longer this fight goes, she is at a disadvantage in regards to her cardio. It pains me to say this, but I'll be picking Katlyn Chookagian to win this fight. I'm a fan of Araujo. The De La Rosa fight, the Modafferi fight. We were on her in a few different spots there on her come up, especially in DraftKings. The Davis fight, you saw she started to run out of gas the longer that fight went. Had a few dangerous spots there, although she was piecing up Davis. Chookagian, though, is very evasive, and she's tough to look good against. Andrade had some success going to the body on her, and Araujo is going to have to do whatever it takes to close distance in this spot. I'll be picking Chookagian, but I'll be rooting for Araujo in this fight. Next up, where we have Matt Schnell taking on Rogerio-Bontorin at 135 pounds, not 125 pounds. And you saw Bontorin come in and miss weight. He actually looked like he was a featherweight up there, but he didn't have the muscle definition that he's had in previous fights. 15-5 record for Schnell, minus 160 at the betting window, 8,900 in DraftKings. Now, Bontorin, you know he's a Brazilian. He's a farmhand, so he's got the farm boy strength. And the Bellator fight, that was a fight that really, my eyebrows went up. I was like, oh man, this guy is for real. He's got 3 rounds of cardio. He's got the grappling. He was able to land, although he didn't throw straight punches, and Schnell does. He was able to land hooks and put Bellator in trouble. Interesting fight we have there. Interesting fight we have here with Schnell. He in the larger octagon is going to look to stay evasive. I know he does have a great ground game here, but he is not the strongest fighter, and he does not have a great chin. We've seen him chin checked in multiple fights. I believe Jonathan Martinez put him in trouble. Pantoja hurt him very badly. There have been others who've dropped him, and once he gets hit on the chin, it's almost like the rug gets pulled out from under him, falls headfirst onto the mat. This is a very, very interesting spot. I see Schnell, the hometown fighter. I'll be picking the underdog in this spot. I think Bontorin, although he had looked like a bad weight cut on short notice, if he's able to close distance, there's the potential for Bontorin to ragdoll Matt Schnell. I know Schnell has a solid ground game, but Bontorin is the much, much more physically stronger fighter in many aspects of this fight. If Schnell's able to stay at range and be evasive, then things change dramatically. Right? Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Is Bontorin related to Ray Borg? Excellent point, Marcus. You may be onto something. Maybe there was some osmosis going on because both of those guys have fought each other in the past. And we saw that Ray Borg came in a few pounds overweight and made Bontorin pay. Looked like he was stuck in mud throughout that fight. Closely lined fight here. I think the value is on Rogerio Bontorin in this spot. And I would also take a look at taking a stab at that submission prop for Bontorin in this specific fight. Interesting fight, though. And at 7,300 in DraftKings, there's a potential for Bontorin to score very highly. Next up, we've got the co-main event of the evening where we have Tony Ferguson taking on Benny Dariush. Tony Ferguson coming in with his 25-5 record, plus 135 underdog. Who thought they'd see a underdog price tag on Tony Ferguson? But this is the reality we live in. We have Tony Ferguson, who it looks like the wheels may have fallen off, although the level of competition needs to be brought into the fray here. Charles Oliveira had his way with Tony Ferguson last time out, and then Justin Gaethje on relatively short notice after Tony Ferguson did the back-to-back weight cuts, was eaten alive for 5 rounds. Ferguson did have his moments in that fight. Taking on Ferguson, taking on Benny Dariush here, who, let's be honest, Benny Dariush is not the greatest athlete out there. He is a excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, has great heart, fights out of an amazing camp with King's MMA. He and Master Rafael Cordeiro are on the same page. Both of these fighters leave it all out there. 24-1 record. Dariush has been caught a few times. The Barboza fight, he was winning the Barboza fight, and then lights out. Man, the Alexander Hernandez fight. I'd love to see at some point Dariush run that back. Ferguson in this spot in the larger octagon. I do think he's live here. There's the potential for Ferguson to come out, look to stay at range. And if we're talking a volume situation here, Ferguson, the way he's able to retract his arms after landing punches, watch that versus Dariush. Dariush is he's just not a great athlete, but he's an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner with a tremendous top game, and he's been able to do so much with his God-given ability. Minus 165 at the betting window for Dariush with a DraftKings price tag of 8,600. If this fight took place a couple of years ago, I think we'd see Ferguson here as a minus 300. But you watch the Cerrone fight, the Pettis fight. There have been a few others where Ferguson has led his opponent back into the fight at times. And Dariush is not somebody you want to play around with. I think that if Ferguson is to get this done, he's got 3 rounds to work with. He's going to have to make cardio become a factor. And I really see Ferguson coming out within the first 10 seconds and just the pace is on, man. The heat is on in this spot. So Ferguson, I do see him getting caught in a number of exchanges here. The range fighting, Dariush is going to have to attempt to close distance. We saw the ground game of Ferguson exposed last time out against Oliveira. He was taken down multiple times, controlled at will. Great athlete. I'll be picking Benny Dariush, though. I think that when it comes to in-fight IQ, I know Ferguson will do whatever the hell he wants. The Imanari rolls may be in full effect here. But Dariush, I think if he sticks to the game plan here, he is the fighter who is more likely to win in this spot. And he has a great camp behind him. I know the weight cut may be an issue, though. You saw Dariush come in a little bit heavy on the scales, and he had to go back and cut that extra weight. He was able to do so. But I'll be picking Dariush in this spot. Now, main event of the evening, my friends. We've got Charles Oliveira with a 30-8 overall record, taking on Michael Chandler, who makes the move from Bellator. Over both of these fighters have combined for a total of 54 finishes, win or loss. They've been involved in 54 finishes in this spot. The DraftKings prices here. Somebody is going to come up big. Minus 135 betting favorite for Charles Oliveira. And you've got Michael Chandler coming in as plus 105. 7,500 for Michael Chandler in DraftKings. Somebody's going to score huge in this spot. Oliveira 8,700. I'm gonna come out and say that somebody's going to put up well north of 100 points in this spot. Michael Chandler, we know he's got the Division I wrestling. He's got the explosive power. He's a great fighter. He does have some chin issues. We haven't seen him submitted before. Oliveira, though, is not somebody you want to play with on the ground. And he also has been growing in regards to the stand-up department. So we've seen Oliveira. I think the Tamor fight, you watched that fight back. That was a fight where he really turned the corner. You saw the eye poke that happened. He could have packed it in and quit. Even the Tony Ferguson fight, the most recent one, he was cut badly. He was hurt. And he went back to the well, came back strong. Chandler has the potential to knock Oliveira out in this spot. That is a possibility. No doubt about it. More likely outcome in this spot, though, I think, is Oliveira catching Chandler in a submission. I think that is a live outcome here. Chandler he has been dropped before in multiple fights. I know it's hard to lay money on something that you've never seen happen before. One of my mottos is don't trust what you haven't seen. So I believe a safer play here. Take a look at the under 2.5. I don't see this fight going the distance. The line on this fight going the distance, we're in like the minus 480s. Let me just double check that one right now. Yeah, minus 485 to finish. Maza, thanks for checking out the stream, my friend. This fight, I'm going to be picking Charles Oliveira to win, though I see Michael Chandler being a extremely live fighter here. Both of these fighters can finish without a doubt, And here's the other thing. The exposure that Michael Chandler is getting for this fight, we haven't seen that before. I know he's got the looks, he's got the charisma, he's got the voice. He sold his last fight better than most fighters had in their entire lives. In this spot, though, I think Oliveira is a very, very dangerous fighter. Go watch his fight against Frankie Edgar, against a prime Frankie Edgar. Dangerous spot. And look how much more mature Oliveira is these days, fighting to his strengths, developing his Muay Thai, the range fighting. I think that could potentially be an issue for Chandler here the longer this fight goes. But give me Charles Oliveira in this spot, though I do see this fight finishing. I want to wish everybody out there a tremendous fight day. We're back. It is fight morning, baby. Let's do this. Mike's MMA Picks here. You can follow my plays at MMA Oddsbreaker Premium. Third-party tracked. Been playing DFS MMA since 2014. So not new on the block here. Long-term tracked winner. Make sure you look into research where you get your advice from, my friends. Long-term tracked winner. We are going to have a tremendous evening. Cheers. Go get what's yours. Enjoy the fights. Let's do this.